If I asked you today, how much would you need to retire? Are you gonna say 10 million, 50 million, 100 million? Hi everyone, this is Charm again from Ready2Adult Philippines, a channel about personal finance, entrepreneurship, and adulting how-tos. Today, we're gonna be talking about the FIRE movement. I didn't realize how unpopular it was in the Philippines until I talked to some people in the personal finance community and they didn't even know about it. And that's when I knew that I should have made this video sooner. So I've always talked about retirement in this channel and how we should aim to save for it because it's a period in our lives where we might not be able to work anymore. I personally love the FIRE movement just because it instills in us the discipline to save and invest and to think about retirement. Some things that are very foreign to us Filipinos and not really practiced. Okay, so I'm not saying that this movement is perfect and it's not gonna be easy, but for you to understand what I'm talking about, let me first explain to you what the FIRE movement is. The FIRE movement, or Financial Independence Retire Early, is a lifestyle movement that came from a book called Your Money or Your Life in the 1990s. But it has recently gained popularity among millennials in the 2010s, especially in the online forums. From the acronym alone, I'm sure you guys already have an idea what it is, but basically, it aims to give people a roadmap how to become financially independent at an early age. Meaning, not in your 60s, but rather in your 30s or 40s. I know I sound crazy right now, but hear me out. Let's define what it is, how it works, and later on, I'm gonna give you some examples. So, let's start! Okay, so first, let's define the two parts of the movement, financial independence and retirement. First is financial independence. Financial independence has a different meaning to everyone. The common image in our minds are usually where you're in a beach, lazing around and, sipping a fresh coconut. Now, that isn't necessarily wrong, but the financial independence here is that you can live indefinitely or forever off your investments and you don't have to work anymore. I mean, you definitely can, especially if it's your passion and you love what you do, but the key word here is you don't have to work. You can take back your time that you might want to spend with your family or, lounging around at home. Okay, so how about retirement? When we talk about retirement, we usually think about when you're 60 or 65 or when you're a senior citizen. But retirement is not necessarily an age, but a number. I'll explain more of that later. But basically, you are retired when you are out of the workforce, either by choice or because of loss. Okay, so how does it work exactly? The FIRE movement has three major rules. Let's go through them one by one. First is you need to know your FIRE number, or also called the FI number, which means Financial Independence Number. Basically, it's how much you need as a nest egg to be able to retire. And for this, you can get this by multiplying your monthly expenses by 12 and multiplying that by 25. You're gonna get your FI number from there. So if you don't already know, then you have to figure out how much your monthly expenses are. So if you wanna get to know your monthly expenses through a budgeting app, I have a video of that over here. I'll link it up in the cards. But for example, you already know, and let's say it's 20,000 pesos a month. 20,000 times 12 times 25 equals 6 million pesos. So you need 6 million pesos invested for you to be able to retire. But that's just the first step. Now let's talk about how it actually works. How can you live off 6 million pesos? Because based on our computation, you can only live off it for 25 years. And here's where investing comes in. This is why I advocate for people to start investing, especially at an early age, because you need to let your money work alongside you so that in the future, your money can work for you while you retire. So how this works is based on the Trinity study by some professors from the Trinity University back in the 1990s. I'll put some reading materials on it down below so you guys can check out the entire study. But basically, they came up with an optimal withdrawal rate, and it's also called the 4% rule. And what that means is basically if you withdraw 4% from your FI number, which is 6 million, that would last you forever or indefinitely. And this study is based on if you would invest your money in vehicles that are invested in the stock market. So for example, you invested your money in the stock market, or let's say in a fund that's mimicking the stock index. So the historical performance of the stock index in the Philippines is 7.5 every year in the last 30 plus years. So around 7% is actually typical in a lot of stock indexes around the world. So 7.5% on average every year, adjusted for inflation and leaving some behind, you can safely withdraw 4% or 240,000 from the 6 million pesos, and your investment based on the study would never run out. You can even leave money for your kids or your beneficiaries. So the 4% is based on the average returns. So of course, if there are recessions or depressions, you would need to adjust your withdrawal rate a little bit. But generally, we know that the stock market goes up in the long term, so you can go back to 4% after that. Now, number 1 and number 2 are all necessary for all retirees. Whether you're retiring early or not, it doesn't matter. You need to get to know these numbers. So what's the third rule? What do you have to do to be able to do this early? You need to have a 50 to 70% savings rate to be able to retire in your 30s or 40s. I'm gonna give you guys a second to let that sink in. I know it sounds impossible. So the two things that are very attached to the FIRE movement is 1, frugality. You really have to find ways to spend less. You have to have a frugal lifestyle. And number 2, you have to have a higher income, meaning you have to earn more. So again, it's all about that gap of earning more and spending less. We have to widen this gap. Mr. Money Mustache has a table wherein he shows how many years you can retire based on your current savings rate. And I'm gonna put it here. So as you can see, for you to be able to retire in 17 years, you have to have a 50% savings rate. So if you're 25 right now, you can retire when you are 43, when you save and invest 50% of your income. So the usual savings rate of 20% from the 50-30-20 budgeting rule means that you can retire in 37 years. That means if you're 23 years old right now, you can retire at 60. But if you're, say, 30 years old right now, and that's your current savings rate, then you can retire when you are 67. I will also link his original article or blog down below so you guys can check it out if you haven't screenshotted this already. Okay, now for some examples, let's crunch the numbers. So given my example earlier of the 20,000 pesos expenses monthly, let's say he or she is earning 30,000 pesos a month. So the savings is 10,000 pesos or 33.3%. Not quite 50 to 70%. Let's see if this person can still retire early. So let's say this person is 30 years old and they already have 200,000 pesos of investments. Okay, so first is let's get the FI number. 20,000 times 12 times 25 is 6 million pesos or $120,000. Okay, so for example, all 6 million pesos are invested in funds and directly into the stock market. If this is a similar situation, 6 million pesos might sound daunting to you, but the thing that you haven't considered is compounding interest. I've talked about compounding interest a lot in this channel. It's basically your interest can also earn interest, and I found this compounding calculator and I will also link it down below. But let's take the example. Let's say his name is Juan, of course. So Juan already has the 200,000 pesos as his initial balance of investment. Let's say the annual interest is at 7% instead of a 7.5. Let's say a 20-year period. And then he's putting 10,000 pesos every month to his investments. Of course, considering he already has an emergency fund and insurance. So let's just take this an example. And based on the computation, he will have his 6 million pesos by the time that he is 50 years old. So that's 20 years, still an early retirement. Okay, let's take, for example, again, another person. Let's say her name is Anna. She has the same expenses of 20,000 pesos and the same savings rate of 33.3%, which is 10,000 pesos. But unlike Juan, she doesn't have 200,000 pesos invested just yet. Instead, she has 20,000 pesos that she put as a down payment in a real estate. And let's say she goes to the real estate route of her investment. Now, for real estate, of course, it doesn't compound, but instead your property appreciates. So, the thing here is that most of the time, there's more potential to earn in real estate through rental income. So, your FI number might come down. Let's say your FI number can now come down to 3 million pesos. 3 million pesos depending on your area, but in major cities, it can earn you 240,000 pesos or 20,000 a month, which is your needed monthly expenses. So if you compare a stock market portfolio and a real estate portfolio, they're actually quite similar because despite needing to earn 6 million pesos with stocks and just 3 million pesos in real estate doesn't compound like the stock market does. Which, if you're aiming for 6 million, you only really need to save about 3 million pesos of that. And because of the magic of compounding interest, you would still reach your goal. I hope that, you guys understood that. I know you do because you guys are smart. But yeah, final thoughts time. Okay, I'm not here to preach to everyone that you should follow the FIRE movement. And I understand that it's not sustainable and it's very hard, especially to us Filipinos. I merely wanted to show you guys that with proper planning, you can become financially independent and retire comfortably. It doesn't have to be early, but my problem is that retiring seems to be a luxury to Filipinos instead of a right. You can see so many older generations still working because they have to and not because they just want to. If the entire concept seems to be very intimidating to you and maybe you need to rewatch the video, the biggest takeaway that I want you guys to get is to start planning for your retirement. That's it. I hope that this video brought you one step closer to that, and if it did, I'm very happy already. And next week, I might talk about the different types of FIRE movement. Yes, there are about 4 or 5 types. And I want to share to you guys my plans for my retirement. I've already talked about it and mentioned it a couple times in my channel that I want to retire by 45 and I want to share it to you guys how I plan to do so. So I hope that you guys subscribe and ring the notification bell so you get notified for that video. If you like this video, then don't forget to hit like. It really helps out the channel a lot. And again, I know that adulting's already hard and retirement seems even harder to think about, but that's why I make these videos for you guys. This has been Charm from Ready2Adult Philippines, and I will see you on my next video. Talked about Philippines, and ay nako, hapit na kita ko mahuman.